Hello friends, welcome to the new YouTube channel Learn Without Doubts. Here we will start with the modern Indian history and then after finishing the modern Indian history we will move to different subjects of UPSC and state PCS. In this channel I have tried summarizing the notes of various sources from various sources like Bipin Chandra, Spectrum and various other textbook and YouTube channels. So this is like a crux from all the places where you can learn and revise easily, and at the same time all the important points will be covered thoroughly, and so that it will be easier for you to revise at the time of exam. So let's start with our very first topic, which is European companies in India. Before 1453, Qustuntunia, which is now known as Istanbul, it was used as a transit location to do trade with Asian countries. But in 1453, it was triumphed by Arabs, and which forced Europeans to find alternate ways for trade from India. And then the competition between European countries began to find new country for trade or find new ways to do trade with Asia. And in this competition, the first person who started his journey to find India or to discover India was Columbus. He started his journey in 1492, but he accidentally landed in America, and that is why discovery of America has been done by Columbus in 1492. After that, Prince Henry जो कि पुर्तगाल के प्रिंस थे, he asked his people to find new countries for trade. Okay, and then we will see the list of arrival of Europeans in India. So first of all, let's start with the Portuguese. Portuguese were the number one in the list of Europeans people who came to India. Okay, so Vasco da Gama was a merchant who came in 1498 from Portugal to Calicut in Kerala. He landed in Calicut in Kerala, and he came along with an Abdul Majid, a Gujarati pilot. He came with him, a Gujarati pilot named Abdul Majid, and he was welcomed in Calicut, Kerala by the king of Calicut named Zamorin. Okay, so Zamorin was the king of Calicut. He welcomed him, and Zamorin's other name was Samuthiri. वो वहाँ के उस वक्त के हिंदू राजा हुआ करते थे, and he welcomed Abdul Majid in he welcomed Vasco da Gama in Calicut, Kerala. Okay, then Vasco da Gama came and he stayed for as long as 3 months with Zamorin, and Zamorin became very happy with him. So when Vasco da Gama was leaving back for Portugal, Zamorin gave him a lot of spices, clothes, etc. as a gift. Okay, and once Vasco da Gama left, after that Pedro Alvarez Cabral, he came in 1500. So after Vasco da Gama, who came from Portugal? Pedro Alvarez Cabral. He came in 1500, and he set up his first Portuguese factory at Cochin in 1503. So once Pedro Alvarez Cabral came in 1500, he again went to Zamorin's place, and after that he asked his permission to set up his first factory of Portugal in India, and which was given the permission was given by Zamorin, and after that the first factory was set up at Cochin in 1503. Okay, so after Pedro Alvarez Cabral, again Vasco da Gama came back in 1501, and he set up a next factory at Cananor. After that, setting up the second factory at Cananor, the third factory was set up at Calicut. So you can see that three factories, Cochin, Cananor and Calicut, these three factories were set up in India. So after that, what happened when the three factories were set up in India, and these Portuguese people wanted to interfere into the administration of India. The reason behind that was when they came to India and they saw that India is very rich country. India was very rich at that time. So they saw these things, and they became greedy. that they wanted to control the administration of this place. They wanted to permanently settle in India. So that was the reason behind that. And due to this, they asked at that time, because Arabs were already doing trade with India. Okay, and these Portuguese people, they asked from Zamorin, they asked Zamorin to stop Arabs, and they asked him to allow the Portugal monopoly over trade. Okay, so उन्होंने ये कहा कि Zamorin को कि आप अरब्स को यहाँ नहीं आने दें ट्रेड करने के लिए, और आप पुर्तगालियों को मोनोपोली दें यहाँ के मार्केट में कि वो यहाँ पे ट्रेड कर सकें. But this permission was not given by Zamorin, and this permission was denied by Zamorin. And after that, these Portuguese people, they with the evil mind, they wanted to control the administration of India. And because they were already self-sufficient in factories now, because they had already set up 3 factories in India. Okay, so they started their administration process, parallel administration, you may say. So in that series, the first one was Francisco de Almeida. This Francisco de Almeida, he was the first governor of first Portuguese governor in India. Okay, and his tenure was from 1505 to 1509. His one policy was their blue water policy. See, blue water policy was nothing but, at that time, Portuguese thought that that Indian Ocean is the place. If they master the Indian Ocean, if they take control of the Indian Ocean, they will be taking control of the Indian economy, because Indian Ocean was very strategic at that time, because Arabs were also using that for trade, and various other countries were also using that for trade, Indian Ocean. So what Francisco de Almeida thought, he thought that if we took control of the Indian Ocean, they will be able to take control of the Indian economy, because they will have checkpoints in the Indian Ocean, and through those checkpoints, if any country want to do trade with India and they want to enter to India, they will have to pay taxes to the Portuguese. So his policy, this policy where he thought to win Indian Ocean, where he thought to take full control over Indian Ocean, was known as the blue water policy. Okay, so this was about the Francisco de Almeida. But the next important governor, which was Alfonso de Albuquerque. This Albuquerque, his tenure was from 1509 to 1515. He was the second governor, and he is considered as a real establisher. Okay, so he is considered as the real establisher, and he made Cochin his first capital, because earlier, see, Francisco de Almeida was, when he was the governor, he did not thought of making the capital in India, but Alfonso de Albuquerque, he made Cochin his first capital. He established Cochin as his capital, and that's why Alfonso de Albuquerque is considered as the real establisher of the Portuguese administration in India. Okay, so then next was what he did. He also won Goa from Adil Shah. Adil Shah was king of Bijapur at that time in 1510. So he fought with him and he won Goa from him. After that, he also encouraged marriage among Portuguese and Indian women. See, he was very visionary. Alfonso de Albuquerque was very visionary, and he thought that if our people will start marrying Indian women, so we will have like bonhomie with Indian society. Okay, and at the same time, they will also mingle up with the Indian society. Indian society will not treat them as the outsiders. तो उन्होंने ऐसा सोचा कि क्यों ना हम इन दोनों की मतलब अगर शादी करवाने लगेंगे हम पोर्टुगीज की और इंडियन वुमेन की, सो इट विल बी बेनिफिशियल फॉर देम इन द लॉन्ग रन. Okay, and he also introduced new crops like tobacco, cashew nuts, etc. in India. His 3G principle, which is important, sometimes it is asked in the examination. So he gave the 3G principle, and 3G principle is nothing but he said that God, gold, and glory. These three things are very important for survival. So this was his Alfonso de Albuquerque 3G principle, which consists of God, gold, and glory. Now after that, the third governor who comes to India was Nino da Cunha. Okay, so Nino da Cunha, his tenure was from 1529 to 1537. He was the third governor, and he shifted the capital from Cochin to Goa. Okay, so he shifted the capital from Cochin to Goa. He also captured Diu in 1535 and Daman in 1559. Sometimes this question is asked in objective. So he captured. So remember this thing that Nino da Cunha, he captured Diu in 1535 and Daman in 1559. Now, some important facts about Portuguese administration, which are important from the examination point of view. So, printing press was started in India by Portuguese administration. Then, cultivation of pineapple, sugarcane, papaya, this was also started by Portuguese administration. And as I told you, and as we have already seen that they first came over here as merchant, and after that, once they came over here as merchant and they established their factories in India, so then they later went into the administration thing. Okay, so the mainly came here for Indian spices and especially pepper. Indian pepper was very popular in Portugal. So they mainly came here for Indian spices, and they started doing administration later on. Now, very important point for Portuguese is they were the first European to arrive in India, and they were last to leave. They were forced to leave after the commencement of Indian Constitution. So you can see that they were the first to come in India. They came here in 1498. Okay, so they came, Vasco da Gama came to India in 1498, और उनको फोर्स करके भगाया गया. उनको फोर्स करके इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन आने के बाद, once the commencement of Indian Constitution started in India after 26th January 1950, after that they were forced to leave. So Goa, Daman and Diu were captured by Government of India in 1961. Okay, and this was after doing the forced aggression against them. Okay, so this we will read later on in detail. So Goa, Daman and Diu were captured by Government of India in 1961. So you can see that they were the first Europeans. They arrived in 1498 and left in 1961. The longest tenure they had in India in the administration, you can say. Okay, so now we will move to the next Europeans who came to India. They were Dutch. So let's start with Dutch. So Cornelis de Houtman, he was the first Dutch who arrived in India in 1602, and they were, before coming to India, they were already present in Indonesia and they were doing trade with Indonesia. So they came to Indonesia in 1595, and they wanted to start clothes export with India. After that, once they entered India, they fought a war with Portuguese and captured Nagapattam. So Nagapattam is a place near Chennai. So they captured Nagapattam from the Portuguese, and after that they established their first factory at Masulipatnam. So Masulipatnam was the place where first factory by Dutch was set up in 1605. Okay, so Masulipatnam, which is in Andhra, so first factory was set up in 1605. Other factories were set up at Surat, Bimlipattam, Karaikal, Chinnusura, Baranagar, Kasim Bazar near Murshidabad, Balasore, Patna, Nagpur and Cochin. So they established many factories here in India, and when Dutch were already doing trade in India, at that time only British also came to India. Okay, so जब Britain इंडिया में आया उस वक्त, and Dutch thought that we should have the monopoly of trade with India because we are already doing. They also entered into the administration till that time when British came. So they were already into the administration also in India, Dutch. Okay, so जब British आए इंडिया में, तो डच ने ऐसा सोचा why we should share our trade monopoly with someone else, with some other country. We should have our trade monopoly in India. Okay, and this trade interference led to the Anglo-Dutch rivalry. Okay, and because of this, bloody warfare took place at Ambiona, which is in Indonesia, in 1623. And after that, in November 1759, Battle of Bedra, which is very important, must remember, Battle of Bedra, also known as Battle of Hooghly, because it took place in the Bedra is in the bank of river Hooghly. Okay, so Battle of Bedra or Battle of Hooghly is took place, and where Dutch lost and they were sent back. So Dutch arrived in India in 1602 and they left India in November 1759 after fighting a war and losing against British in Battle of Bedra, also known as Battle of Hooghly, in November 1759. The most important of all the Europeans who came to India were the British. British ruled in India for over 200 years. They not only interfered into the trade monopolies of India, but they also interfered and took control of all the administrative rights in India, and they oppressed the Indian society for more than 200 years. So we will now discuss that how they came to India and what they did when they initially came to India. So how their journey was started. So Elizabeth I in Britain started a company on 31st December 1600. So this is very important date, 31st December and 1600. On this date, the British East India Company was started by Queen Elizabeth I. And at that time in India, Akbar was the Mughal Emperor of India. Okay, so this company, this British East India Company, it got the right to trade outside Britain for 15 years. So this British East India Company got the right to trade outside Britain with different countries for 15 years. Okay, and after Elizabeth was dead in 1603, and so James I became the new ruler. He sent Captain Hawkins to India. Captain Hawkins was sent by whom? He was sent by James I. And Captain Hawkins reached in India Surat, which is in Gujarat. So Captain Hawkins reached over there with his ship named Hector. So sometimes this question is asked, that's why I have mentioned over here. So Captain Hawkins reached Surat with his ship named Hector, and he carried the letter of James I addressing Akbar. But in 1605, India's Mughal emperor was Jahangir at that time, and the letter which James I was carrying, it was addressing Akbar. Okay, so Jahangir was the ruler of Mughal at that time in 1605 when Captain Hawkins reached. And let's know something about Captain Hawkins. But that Captain Hawkins was a very brilliant and very educated person, and he was knowing many languages of different countries, and he was very much fluent in Persian and Turkish also. And these languages, Persian and Turkish, were the mother tongue of the Mughal rulers. That's why Jahangir became very happy with Captain Hawkins, and he gave him the right to start his first factory at Surat, and that's how the Britain set up the first factory in Surat in 1608. Okay, but unfortunately, due to some problems from their end, this factory which was set up at Surat in 1608, it started working from 1613. It took almost 4 years to start working. And meanwhile, the next factory which was established at Mosilipatnam in Andhra Pradesh, it started working before the Surat factory was finished in 1613. So if the question comes that which factory was set up by British in India for the first time, so obviously the answer will be Surat. But if the question asks that which factory which started working in India from British very first. So the answer will be Masulipatam, but this is not generally asked in examination. So from the examination point of view, this Surat is very important. So factory at Surat was set up by British in 1608. Okay. So after Captain Hawkins, the next important personality from Britain who arrived in India was Sir Thomas Roe. Sir Thomas Roe, he arrived in India in 1615 and he also went to Jahangir's court. Okay. Now the important point over here, very important, they obtained a golden farman in 1632. This golden farman was obtained by British from the Golconda king. Okay, so they obtained this golden farman in 1632 from whom? From the Golconda king. And this golden farman gave them the right to do free trade in Golconda. Okay, so this was like a stepping stone for them to do administration or to start a different version of their trade with India. Okay, now after that, the most important thing or very important from the exam perspective is that Farooq Siyar's Farman, which is also known as Magna Carta of the British rule in India. Okay, so ये फारूक सियार का जो फरमान है इसको मैग्ना कार्टा ऑफ द ब्रिटिश रूल इन इंडिया के नाम से भी जाना जाता है और ये बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट था बिकॉज इट लेड द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट स्टेपिंग स्टोन ऑफ ब्रिटिश रूल इन इंडिया. ओके, सो let's start with this Farooq Siyar Farman, which is also known as the Magna Carta. What was the important point for it? So John Sherman, he negotiated with Farooq Siyar to get 3 golden farman, and these 3 golden farman in which they got the important privilege for company in Gujarat, Bengal and Hyderabad. So in Gujarat, in Bengal and in Hyderabad, they got the company got the important privilege to trade. Okay, and this is known as the Magna Carta for the company because of the some important points which we are going to deal now. So they got the right to do free trade in Bengal by paying 3,000 rupees per year. So only after paying 3,000 rupees per year, they got the right to do free trade in Bengal, whether other companies, other European companies which were also present in India were not given this opportunity to do free trade in India. And this opportunity was given to the East India Company, British East India Company by Farooq Siyar. Okay, so that is how it is known as the Magna Carta. So this is very important farman which was given by Farooq Siyar to the British East India Company. Now the free trade in Surat after paying 10,000 rupees per year. So 10,000 rupees per year they were at that time they needed to pay to the Farooq Siyar, and after that they got this free trade in Surat. And the most important thing, or you may say that most foolish thing what Farooq Siyar did, he allowed the circulation of coins minted by company to whole India. Okay, so this was the most foolish thing done by Farooq Siyar, because at that time Farooq Siyar was already doing circulation of his own minted coins, but he allowed, after allowing the British East India Company to circulate the coins which was minted by the company itself, he somehow he allowed the parallel currency to be revolved in the market. Okay, the parallel currency to do the rotation in the market, and this was the most foolish thing, and this made the British very, very strong in India, which we will see in the later chapters how it affected the Mughals economy and how it led to the British rule in India. Now we will understand a very important but funny incident in the Indian history, that Charles II, who was the Prince of Britain, he married Catherine, who was princess from Portugal, and this marriage took place in 1661. Okay, now Portuguese, they gave Bombay, which was a part of India, as a dowry to Britain. you can see that how they thought that each and every part where they administered, so they thought that they are the permanent king of that particular place, and that's why Bombay was given by Portugal to Britain as a dowry. And once the British got the Bombay as a dowry, so they gave the company right to trade over there by paying £10 per year rent to them in 1668. Okay, so understood how funny this fact is that in 1661 किसी की शादी होती है और उसकी शादी में कोई एक country की territory है, that country's territory is given as a dowry to some other country, and that particular country who gets it as a dowry, so he transfers it to some other company on rent, and he says that now you are authorized to do trade over there. So this was the incident which took place in between 1661 to 1668. Now there were three presidencies of India which were developed by British at that time. I'm not very good in maps, but I will draw it over here. So first it was like Bombay over here, then we will see Kolkata is like somewhere here, and Tamil Nadu at this place. So we can see that this was the Kolkata Presidency, then this was the Bombay Presidency, and this was the Madras Presidency. So these presidencies, if we will see closely over here, then we can see that these three presidencies were developed at the three geographical extent of India. From there, the British thought that they will be able to control the Indian administration from various points or various geographical points of India. So these three presidencies were developed keeping that thing in the mind. Now few important forts which you need to remember and which is asked mostly into the examination is Fort St. George. It was made by British in Madras. Then Fort William, it was made also by British in Kolkata, and Fort Lui made by British in Pondicherry. So these three forts which was made by British was Fort St. George in Madras, now Chennai, Fort William in Kolkata, now Calcutta, and Fort Lui, Pondicherry, now Puducherry. So these three forts are important to be remembered. Denmark, also known as Danish. So they were here in 1616 and they had their presence in Tanjore. They were not here for trade mainly, but they were here for the missionary activities. Okay, then after that Sweden also came. Sweden was the last company to arrive, and its extent was mainly limited to China in 1731, and they came to India, but they did not do any activities here in India. So this is the least important, but the most important is the French. After British, the second most important, you may say, so they were the British. So during the reign of King Louis XIV, Louis XIV was the king of Britain at that time. So the French East India Company was formed in 1664. King Louis XIV ने फ्रेंच ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी को फॉर्म किया था कब 1664 में. And when they came to India, so the first factory they set up at Surat in 1668. So the French first company which was set up in India was at Surat in 1668. Then after that they went to set up the second factory, and this was set up in Masulipatnam in 1669. Then at that time Shaista Khan, who was the Mughal Subedar of Bengal, he gave them permission to establish a township at Chandranagar near Calcutta. So Shaista Khan, who was a Mughal Subedar of Bengal, he gave the French army, the French East India Company, the permission to establish a township at Chandranagar, which is near Calcutta. So Francois Martin, who was a French governor, he founded Pondicherry and developed it as a place of importance. And French ruled Pondicherry from 1674 till 1954. Okay, So it was also much later after India got independence, and even India's constitution was in place. Till then also French colony was ruling Pondicherry. Okay, and Dutch also captured Pondicherry in 1693 after a war with French. But Treaty of Ryswick, so this is important, Treaty of Ryswick, it was between Dutch and French army. So it took place in 1697 and it restored French rule in Pondicherry. Okay, now a very important part of this chapter is the Carnatic Wars. This Carnatic War is the war between Anglo and French army. Okay, so let's understand this Carnatic War. The rivalry began with the Austrian War of Succession, because Austrian War of Succession was already going in Austria, which is a country in Europe. There a war of succession was taking place, and this resulted into the extension of their war in India also. So the rivalry began with the Austrian War of Succession. There were total 3 Carnatic Wars in India between British and French. Carnatic was the name given by the Europeans to the Coromandel coast and its hinterland. So the area near the Coromandel coast and its nearby area were known as the Carnatic by the Europeans. Now let's start with the 3 Carnatic Wars. So first Carnatic War, it took place from 1746 to 1748 and for 2 years, and the reason behind it was the Austrian succession, the extension of the Austrian succession. Okay, the treaty which took place in 1748 was Aix-la-Chapelle Treaty. And the important points which we need to consider was that Dupleix was the French governor from the France side. Admiral La Bourdonnais, he was the French governor of Mauritius at that time. He was also from the France side. And one very important war which took place during the first Carnatic War was Saint Thome War. Saint Thome War, which took place in 1748, and it took place at Chennai. Okay. Then after this war, when the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle took place, so Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle considered few important points was that Madras was handed back to English, and North American province were given back to the French. So after that, the second Carnatic War took place in 1749. 1 year later after the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle. So in 1749 the second Carnatic War started, and it ended after 5 years in 1754. And the reason behind it was the war of succession in Hyderabad and Karnataka. See, Hyderabad and Karnataka, there were various kingdoms, and one kingdom was supported by French army and another kingdom was supported by British army, and that was the reason. So again they came to fight. Britain and France came to fight. So Treaty of Pondicherry took place in 1755. Treaty of Pondicherry was the result of the second Carnatic War. After the second Carnatic War, Treaty of Pondicherry took place, and it took place in 1755. The important war which took place in the second Carnatic War was the Battle of Ambur. Battle of Ambur. Ambur is near Vellore. So here Battle of Ambur took place, and it took place in 1749. After that, third Carnatic War happened. Third Carnatic War started from 1758 to 1763. It also took place for 5 years, and the immediate result for this was the 7 Years War in Europe started again. The 7 Years War started in Europe again, and it was from 1756 to 1763. This 7-year war in Europe started, and because it started in 1756, and thus the war which started in India was from 1758. And after this third Carnatic War, it stopped. So Treaty of Paris took place in 1763. This was known as the decisive war, and the most important war which took place was Battle of Won Goa. Very important, must remember. Battle of Won Goa. Won Goa is near Tamil Nadu. It took place on 22nd January 1760. French lost, Okay, and Ayerkut was from Britain side, Count Lally was from France side, and French lost badly, and after that they were told to leave, they were asked to leave India, and that's how the Britain had complete monopoly over trade and over administration in India's market, and then they flourished for more than 200 years. Okay, so thank you very much. Please like the channel, please subscribe the channel, and please write into the comment box how did you find the content of this video. Thank you very much. See you in the next topic.